Hello everyone, and welcome to the second day of Hackcon. My name is Juan Pablo Flores, and I am program manager at the GitHub education team, where I get to work every day with some of the most talented students in the world and support them to build amazing communities. You can't imagine how happy we are to be sponsoring again Hackcon this year and getting to know all of you, the work that you're doing, and learning what you're going to be doing next year. In this talk, we will uncover some of the dynamics that we have seen within online communities and the events that they organize from a non-structural point of view. This approach will help you to understand the tensions that might appear in your community as it grows in size. We end this talk with discussing some of the methods you can use to manage these tensions, and you will get some homework to take back to your community. As you might know, we are currently living in something we call the World 2.0. We have gone through so many changes in a very short amount of time, and students like you have gone from taking classes on campus to taking them online, and probably this has changed the way that you interact with other students. Now, even Tinder dating can not only break your heart, but can potentially kill you. And our brain hates to go through these changes. And overall, it hates going to changes on the habits that we already have. And this has happened a lot in the last 6 months. Particularly as a hackathon organizer, you already know very well how to organize in-person events, and now this habit of organizing these events in person needs to be changed into organizing these events online. Even if you think about it, hackathons are part of our habits, and if you study any technology-related degree, it has become part of the culture. But changing this habit is very hard, and your brain is just like, no, I'm not going to do this, it's already too much. And what it tries to do by doing this is to save energy. And we noticed this happened in the first couple of months of the pandemic. As we enter the next half of the year, the student events are coming back. In some way, we have processed part of the changes that being in the lockdown has presented to all of us. And even if we don't have everything sorted out, online events are becoming the new normal. Not in the same frequency as we used to have before, but they have slowly come back. As more event and communities transition to this new space, we have seen new dynamics and struggles communities are facing in this transition. But before we go into these struggles, let's understand why people join communities. And we have found 4 main motivations. First, the students want to build an identity within their community, so they want to get to be known for a particular technology, and also start building this sense of belonging within this community. They want to build a network, get to know decision takers and makers. They want to know the leaders within the industry and get to talk with them and hang with them. Social exchange, which has to do with the negotiation of tangible and intangible goods. So you are exchanging not only probably goods, but you're also exchanging experiences and knowledge within your community. And having a shared interest. People within a community have some struggle or some goal that they want to solve within their communities or within their student groups. And that's why they join part of your communities. Now, an interesting point about student communities is that they belong to a very particular type of online community related to sharing, accumulating, and co-creating knowledge, which at the same time, while offering this knowledge to others, it combines and integrates itself into the life experiences of your fellow colleagues. These type of communities are also known as knowledge collaboration communities, and they are the reason why we constantly hear that gathering with a group of like-minded friends and colleagues is one of the most effective ways to learn a new skill. This cycle of sharing and learning from others while integrating our experiences facilitates the creation of new knowledge. This is why having a diverse group of people within your community that come from often excluded groups or minorities adds so much value, because they incorporate new experiences to this cycle that you wouldn't be able to have without them. There are some great examples of very successful online knowledge communities, but one of the key components that they have is, or something that we've seen, is that in various communities there is an unbelievable amount of collaboration. During a webinar we organized with Hackcon VIII team, where they talked about the process that they followed to throw such a massive event in a short amount of time, the organizers mentioned that during the event, several students reached out to them to offer their help. Some of these students had prior experience as hackathon organizers, and some of them just volunteered to help operate the event. Even though they did accept some of these people, they started to have some problem as the team grows, so it became kind of hard to manage. This is also something that happened on GitHub graduation, also known as Git Remote Graduation, where several students volunteered themselves as reviewers for other student submissions when they saw that the number of pull requests dramatically increased as the repository gained more visibility. If you have been to any online hackathon recently, or you have been to any online event, if an attendee asks a question on a public channel, it's common that other participants answer their questions without necessarily being an official mentor of the event. So collaboration is taking place in online communities, even if the people involved in the event do not know each other. And what we mean by this is that this lack of a standard social structure and hierarchies in virtual spaces is making everyone easier to just jump in and collaborate with other people. Now, there are some of the examples of communities that do this is Wikipedia, where any person can join the platform, add, edit, and integrate content on public articles that are accessed worldwide. On the other hand, you can also get to the platform to consume the content others have made previously. This has made Wikipedia one of the most visited websites on the internet, with more than 20 billion page views per month. Another similar case that I wish you know is GitHub, where people from all over the world are constantly collaborating in the development of tools used by developers and businesses. Most of these projects or code repositories are openly co-developed, meaning that the creation and contribution to these projects is open for anyone. Though these platforms are very specific in the way their communities work together, we also see that they are conformed by more specialized groups that share a particular interest. This might resonate with some of your communities at school, where you have decided to deep dive into a particular topic, like mobile or web development, cybersecurity, or if you want to sound fancy, even like machine learning or blockchain. Understanding the dynamics behind this particular type of communities is not only important right now because of the content that we are living right now, but also because we have been collaborating and working within online communities for a long time. And you, as a leader within your community, you need to learn how to manage the resources and the contexts that we are going to be looking forward in this presentation. And if you do it correctly, you're going to be able to have an amazing online experience and an engaged community within your local or even bigger communities outside of your university. Something that we need to rethink is think about your in-person community or event. It will probably look something similar to the photo on the left side of this slide. But so when we have an in-person or physical community, the space in which your communities might be static in the amount of people that may be in the space and in the space distribution itself. It's not very common that a new room or extra space will appear. And in some way, we can say that these spaces are very well structured and will hardly change or will not change in a short amount of time. On the right side, we have some of the most common platforms used to create and maintain online communities. Even though here we only present the logos of the platform, if you have been in any Discord server or Twitch stream, you know very well how the space in this platform will dynamically increase as more people start to join. And the important thing about these online platforms is that they allow it to fit as many people as there is infrastructure for it. And this is something very particular that we see on online communities, is that they tend to have a very dynamic space where there are rapid changes in the flow of people, content, and boundaries. This is something we call fluidity of online communities. And the importance of fluidity is that you will likely find different interactions and participants every time that you join the same community. But as these community changes and these changes happen, in its essence, the community remains the same. This happens as well in remote teams where you might have people joining different channels and lurking through the organization to keep themselves updated on what other teams are doing. The benefit from this is that in case they find that their experience or their opinion might nurture a discussion, they can easily do so. This also can provide a platform for new ways of participation, where you might have a very small group of people who are actively collaborating and communicating in these communities, and a large group of people that are inactive in the conversation, but that are passively consuming the resources that are being shared. This is the case of lurkers or consumers of Wikipedia articles in the previous examples. As community leaders, we can find this very frustrating since having an engaged online community is challenging on its own, but lurking in chat represents the first step to promote participation of those who have been passive in the community. And managing to be able to have these conversations and to keep our people engaged in the community, we need to understand that the fluctuations of certain characteristics and resources within online communities might generate positive or negative impacts within the community. And managing these resources will be key for you to have a successful community. The first characteristic I would like to share with you is context. Making sure that everybody understands the same context, or that the context is similar for everyone within a community, is one of the key components within these online spaces. Ideas should be free from the author and the particular context they were originated. This will allow others to contribute over the idea or the conversation, and even start building something we call parallel ideas, which are ideas that are built on top of each other. The ideas and conversations might evolve in very unexpected and positive ways if you're able to have these context-free discussions. The bad thing about having this free context is that combining ideas from others might add context or even create harm without the people or the community members itself knowing. And this is something we've seen, for example, in Wikipedia articles where people start contributing, but they don't notice that they start adding bias into these conversations. Or also, if you want to be successful with providing a global context or a context that everybody can understand, you can do something like this talk, where we are talking to a very particular group of people that are you, Hackcon organizers and community leaders. And this content might be useful for you as you continue to develop your community. Now, something you want to avoid is as well trying to make sure or implicitly certain context, and this can start making harm to your community. So make sure that the context is something that everybody shares and that everybody can contribute to. Now, the second important part is setting a common goal. This will allow diverse ideas to be framed towards a single main goal. So probably some members of your community have a very particular goal that they want to develop within your community, but by setting this global goal or this common goal for the community, they can start helping you as a community leader to build this goal or to reach this goal by doing small contributions. Now, the convergence towards a single goal can be temporarily due to the rapid change in nature of these fluid communities. It's very common they will change every 3 to 6 months or every time that you finish an event. These divergent ideas should only focus on a single goal so that everybody starts contributing into these long-term or this future goal. On the other hand, the lack of mixing ideas towards one goal might damage the community and separate its members. And this is very important for newcomers who probably not fully understand the goals that the community has, and this confusion might cause them frustration when doing contributions to the community. When this is combined with a lack of feedback on the work that these members are making, This can start, as mentioned before, this will start separating the members, or people will start leaving the community itself. So make sure that everybody understands which are the goals within your online community, to make sure that these contributions are being valuable not only for the individual member, but for your community as a collective. Another point is ambiguous identities, which has to do with the anonymity that online communities might provide. If you join a Discord server, you can select any username that probably will not help us identify a particular community member. So the identity of this member remains unknown. As the online community grows, the people and their identifying information and their contributions often become separated, so that it's hard to track what is the work that each of them is doing. This separation leads to socially ambiguous identities. And this benefits certain process within your community, for example, when you are ideating or brainstorming, since there is a reduced concern on social status, on credentials, and even stereotyping people within your community, so that people feel more safe to bring probably like bigger ideas, or to do these moonshot ideas that the community might find valuable, but if they were identifiable by it, they might not feel so confident about proposing them. Since the community members do not share any information, as their participation increases, they might be promoting into sharing more ideas that are valid not only by the idea itself, but by the merit, not by their influence or by their credentials that they might have. One of the biggest problems about ambiguous identities, that I'm sure that if you've organized any online event, you have gone through this, is keeping people accountable. So online trolling is fomented by these ambiguous identities in online spaces, since it's very hard to prosecute and to make sure that people that are breaking the code of conduct and the rules of the event, it's very hard to track them down. It provides a very safe space for people as well to not only propose these crazy ideas or these out of the ordinary ideas, but also to start doing activities that they wouldn't normally do in physical spaces. So be mindful about how ambiguous identities might start creating trolls within your community, and make sure to have a very good code of conduct that can help you reduce the friction that these ambiguous identities might create. Now, the next resource is time. And for everyone who has a community, we would love to have people contributing as much as they can, but sometimes time can be a constraint. And when people have a lot of time on their hands to contribute within their communities, they can start crowding the contribution of others. And this is something we saw with GitHub graduation, even though in our case was very positive, because since we had volunteer students that had some free time to review other student submissions, they could start reviewing these submissions and the work that other students were doing without us being there, or probably even before we joined that pull request. And that is very positive. The problem is that if you see someone that is everywhere within a website and everywhere within a conversation, it can start getting too much attention into one only person, and this starts crowding the way that other people might see the discussion or the conversation. When people start also taking a lot of time, they start influencing the process, and we saw this as well within GitHub graduation. So as they reviewed pull requests, probably some of them didn't have very clear the way or the method that we were using to review this pull request. And this can be positive if they have enough information, but very negative if they are giving feedback to other people that was not the right feedback for the time or for that particular request. And something we also saw is something called the old-timers. Old-timers are people who have been in the community for a long time and they have been actively contributing, but when newcomers join your community, these old timers might be a little bit too rough with them and start even ridiculizing some of the work that they're doing if they don't understand the process of doing certain activities within your online community. People might think that they need to dedicate the same amount of time as the old timers or the people that have a lot of time, and this can push them back from contributing to the community. And the old timers have a fear to lose their influence if they don't contribute as much as they were doing before. So this can particularly create a lot of tension for them to keep their position and keep their influence by dedicating more time, even though they don't have that time. And last but not least, passion. Passion is one of the drivers for most of us here at Hackcon. We love helping other students, and we want to make sure that they get the best opportunities to contribute to the industry, to academia, or to open source projects. Passion can be a great driver for participation. It helps also to join and focus efforts on developing projects. It can help people get through struggles within the community and provide motivation to the members of that community as well. The problem with passion is when you have people that have an excessive passion, it can be bad. It can create very negative consequences, and it can start building a barrier within the community. When people with a lot of passion enter into discussion, sometimes this discussion might resolve in a win-lose situation within your community that will make people leave or stop contributing to your community's activities. And now we need to start thinking about how we're going to be responding to these tensions. Tensions in online communities, first of all, they will happen, and that's unavoidable. Passionate emotions will become inflamed. Time will pressure people into making statements that might appear harmful to the community. Ideas may become cryptic and not helpful to the community. Goal setting may lead to disorganization, that participants cannot find ideas, threads of ideas, or ways to enter into a topic or to a conversation to make a valuable contribution. And the negative consequences of identity ambiguity may take a hold to such extent that the deception and uncivilized behavior prevails within the community. And one of the first steps you can do as a community leader is do the basics. So make sure that you have a code of conduct that everybody can follow up with. Make sure you have moderation tools within your community, and make a very clear set of rules within the community that people must follow. Something we notice within fluid communities is something we call just-in-time roles, where people will appear temporarily to solve one of the struggles that the community is facing. These roles happen naturally and are temporary or have a very short amount of time of duration. So you have people who, and we see them appearing a lot when a member of a core group or part of the leadership authority is not in that space or is currently offline. So, for example, something that happens is people will auto-moderate themselves, and this will help fight these very passionate discussions that might be arising. And if you think about it, there is one company that has been taking a lot of advantage from these just-in-time roles. And Facebook, for example, within Facebook groups, they have created different badges that they award people. These badges have a time length of a month, generally speaking, but they can even get longer as a community or this person continues to contribute in that same way. So you have moderators, you have conversation starters, which is people who just throw an idea into the conversation and then leave and never come back. And you also have these content creators who will take this idea and will keep the discussion or the conversation afterwards. Facebook has identified these same roles and applied them to their Facebook group badges. So make sure that you know that these people will arise and start identifying them within your community. The status updates within a community is key. So what you're looking here is to provide people with context and information about what's the current state of probably the hackathon that you're organizing. How is it going in sponsorship, or how is it going with the number of attendees that have registered? And there are two different types of two narratives called the public narratives and the private narrative. Now, public narratives are also known as front narratives, are these messages or these status updates that an audience or the full community can learn from, or will help the community to update the information that they have about certain topics or certain projects. So for example, if you're building an open source project and you have the GitHub Slack integration, when someone does a commit, people can track down that commit has happened. And this is very beneficial, so people can track down what's the current state and how they can contribute to the idea or the project that you're building. Something that is key if you're not doing these automated status updates is to start building a narrative so that people can, for our brain, is easier to understand these stories as a narrative, not so much as small and very separate or non-sequential updates. So try to build a narrative within the update so that people can follow up, and even though if they miss one or two, they can get the context and complete the story. We also have private narratives, which help more when you're having a lot of tensions with passionate and discussions and uncivilized behaviors within your community. So these are private groups that will try to solve the problem that the community is having, and they do it in a private way so that there is information that is not necessarily public or that shouldn't be public to solve the problem. And this will not only allow you to manage these behaviors that probably you don't want within your community in the best way possible. Then we have changing boundaries. So changing boundaries is when you are changing the online virtual space. You can have very large groups where everybody is, and these might require a lot of energy to keep on going. But if you have smaller groups and smaller channels within your Discord server, keeping people engaged can be easier, since the amount of people and the energy that you need to dedicate to that small group is not necessarily for a broader audience. And by setting up smaller groups, you can also start separating the context. So you have a group that will only speak about keyboards within your community, or a community or a channel that has only the pet section, so that people know that the context of that channel is only about pets or only about keyboards. By having this separation will allow you to have more control on the context, more control on the amount of energy you have to give to start growing this community or keeping them more engaged. You have to be very careful though, because if you have a lot of very small groups within your community, these can create the same problems that we see in in-person hackathons that have a lot of different rooms, where you have rooms that are extremely active and that the community might be amazing within that room, but other rooms don't have that much energy or that are even abandoned. So be careful and be very mindful, justify why you're going to be opening a new group within your community, so that you can manage the energy and the engagement within your community the best way possible. Last and not least, we have tooling. Tooling will help you automate as much as you can. And when you start your community, tooling is not necessary, but as your community starts growing, creating these tools to manage the community is the best way. Now, there are three ways that these tools can help you. They can help you to manage review process, or such as, for example, having some sort of continuous integration that updates everyone within your Slack, or having, for example, if people are submitting their projects within your hackathon, having a bot that tell people like, hey, you haven't submitted your project, we're getting to the last part of the hackathon, but do you need any help? And also keeping, for example, the these moderation tools are very important as start getting more importance as your community starts to grow, since you cannot live in every channel all the time, so they can automate some responses. So let's take a couple of step backs and see the tensions that we talked about. So we talked about context, we talked about time, we talked about setting a common goal, passion, and ambiguous identities. So these last couple of slides have the positive and negatives of each of one, which I will leave in my GitHub profile page in case you want to have this very easy framework or in your community, so that you're able to track them down. And just to close up, remember that fluidity is something that will happen as your community grows. It is okay to have people who are passively consuming the resources within your community. This might help them to participate in the future. Make sure to know these resources, have them very clear within your community. These are just 5 of many other resources, so we can talk about policies within your community, but that's another complete talk. And make sure that you know how to manage these resources within the community, how to solve these tensions, and keep in mind and start identifying which members of your community are having which type of interactions within it. That's all from our side. It was a pleasure to talk to you about the amazing world of online communities and how this fluid structure, or this fluid non-structural way of watching or analyzing communities might help your community as it grows. If you have any questions, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Juan Flores in Twitter, or you can visit the GitHub booth that we're going to be having through the event. You can jump in and join our networking sessions. We're going to be having a scavenger hunt and some mini events that will not only help you distract sometimes from the conference and the discussions, but also will give you some really cool extra stuff. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the conference.